Welcome back to Soundwell Guitar. Today we're going to be revisiting the 12-bar blues, but this time we're going to be doing it using a single note melody. So this is lesson 3 where we're covering the 12-bar blues concept. If you haven't seen those videos, I encourage you to check them out so you understand what a 12-bar blues is. Just to cover it briefly, it's where we have 12 measures in our tune, and in this case we were doing it in the key of E major, so we were dealing with the chords E, A, and B7. This tune is going to, like I said, be using a single note melody. It goes like this. And so on. And it's going to cover that 12-bar span or 12-measure layout like we did on the last 2 lessons. So let's begin. This melody is played by fretting almost your entire E major chord. If you remember when we did the E major, we held the fingers on the guitar like that. When we play this single note melody, I encourage you to just focus on the second and third finger and not worry about using the first finger. The pick for the first measure will do all downstrokes because there's 4 notes in this 4-beat measure, and the pick is simply going down on the notes on the beats, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll show you the close-up. Notice I've got my third finger lifted but ready to go on the 4th string. I go down on the 6th string, down on the 5th, and then down on the 4th. Then I put my third finger down on the 4th string, 2nd fret, and I do my 4th downstroke on the 4th beat of the first measure. Okay, the second part of that phrase is in the second measure, so it takes 2 measures to complete this entire phrase. It's going to be the same notes, but we're going to double up on the 4th string one that was open. And it sounds like this. Okay, it's important to note that with our with our right hand, the pick, when we did the 2 open Ds, I did an upstroke on both of those. The reason why I did that is because if you count it, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. You heard those ands in there. That's that 8th note count. I'll do it again. Now I'll count out loud with it. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So with those ands, those notes, that is in between the beats, I used an upstroke. This helped create the phrase, or made the phrase a little bit more concise. If you're struggling a little bit too with 8th note rhythms, I've often found that when we do the upstroke on the off beats, we tend to fall into the groove a little bit more naturally, as opposed to doing all downstrokes. Most people want to do all downstrokes. I know I did when I first started learning. It just seemed easier to not have to worry about mapping out the pick strokes. But I realized in time, the big lesson I got from learning about the beauty of the upstrokes is that it's not just an efficient move if you're trying to play fast, but that it will help your phrasing in the event you're trying to do something like 8th notes. I'll do it with all downstrokes, and maybe you'll hear what I'm talking about. It's almost like I don't really know where the pulse is when I do that, but even if I do it with those 2 upstrokes, now it's got more of that blues kind of groove to it, or just that offbeat feel. The reason why I'm encouraging you to play this single note melody as if the left hand is kind of doing a chord is because it will create a smoother sound. The guitar is a chording instrument, and a lot of times we desire a sound where notes bleed together like that, as long as they're, well, part of the same chord and sound good. Let me show you what this would sound like if we didn't use the 2-3 fingering that I suggested, and maybe just tried to take the easy route and play with just one finger fretting on with the left hand. Here's how it would sound. You see how when I used one finger, I had to lift it then to get to the next note that was on the 4th string. So I went from the 5th string to the 4th, and I couldn't let that note ring out because my finger had to let go of it to go to the next one, creating kind of more of a choppy sound. See, the notes are right, the melody or the timing is okay, but so much better when we just utilize 2 of our phalanges to do it and allowing notes to ring out. Okay, so what we're going to do is the first 4 bars of our 12-bar blues. This is in the key of E. We started out with our E chord, but we did a single note melody with it. It's going to play twice. We're going to do that melody twice, which then winds up being 4 measures, sounding like this. Now what we're going to do next is then go to the A chord, just like we did in our previous lessons with the 12-bar blues. So we're going to fret the lower partial of that A major chord. 2nd finger, 4th string, 2nd fret, and then our 3rd finger on the 3rd string, 2nd fret. I don't need my pinky. This is actually going to turn out to be just like the previous thing, but our fingers have now just moved to the higher strings, the 4th and the 3rd, where before they were on the 5th and the 4th. But then we're just going to do the exact same thing, but just on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings, like this. Again, I did the upstroke in that one too on that 2nd measure. So what happens then for the 12-bar blues, when we get to this part, which is the A chord, that gets 2 measures, so the phrase gets 1 loop. We then go back in the next 2 measures to our E. All right, now we're about to finish the final 4 measures of our 12-bar blues. Because the phrase takes 2 measures to do, but if you remember in our previous lesson when we went to the B chord, that only got 1 measure, then the measure after that was A. That means we're going to have to break this phrase up in two measures into 2 chords. I hope that doesn't sound too confusing. All I'm saying is when we go to the B, this is our 9th measure, and we do the phrase by fretting the 1st finger on the 5th string, 2nd fret. Then we bring our 3rd finger to the 4th string, 4th fret. Now to the 3rd string, 2nd fret, and then we go to the 4th fret on the 3rd string again. And this is using fingers 1 and 3. Okay, so I'm going to get back to where we break it up into 2 measures right now. I did want to kind of talk about how when we get to the B part, it's not identical to like the A or the E was. When we use our 1st, our 3rd, and our 3rd finger, it just makes it a little bit more difficult. So you might find yourself focusing on that spot more than the other ones once you get the other ones down. Because the challenge at first with the other ones isn't so much getting the notes, but it's just that rhythm. And once you've mastered that, this should start to come quickly. But this can sometimes be a stumbling block doing that. But just try to think of it as like a little micro exercise. You could practice that over and over. Okay, so back to what I was talking about, though, how we have to go from the B chord to the A chord, then back to the E chord, and then the B chord again on those last 4 measures, just like we did on the previous lessons with 12-bar blues. But that means that we have to break this phrase up with the chords like this. You see that? That was the B chord. Next measure was the A chord, and I had to do the second half of the phrase with the 2 upstrokes there. All right, so after that, then we have to go to the E chord for the first half of the phrase. And then we finish off with our 12th measure with the B. See, that one now is the second half of the phrase on the B chord. That second half again with the 2 upstrokes. The only thing that really makes it any different. Okay, so we'll put all that together. So have fun playing that. This is a little bit more of a study piece. The other ones we've just been doing some chords and strumming, doing some technique stuff. But now we're actually getting into some true melody here, as well as maintaining the progression, the E, A, and the B, and the 12 bars things. We're getting more advanced here. Be patient with yourself. As you get more advanced, you will need to practice more. If you find that this material is not coming as easily as some of the earlier stuff, that's totally normal. It's just getting more difficult. Just make sure that you're setting aside time every day to practice these things if you really want to get them down and get them smooth. I highly recommend, too, that you take my advice on using these specific fingerings and also the exact same picking pattern that I'm giving you. I don't like to be super dogmatic about stuff like that, but you might find yourself at first tempted to do all downstrokes on this, and then you might kind of go back after you think you've got it mastered, and you listen to it and you're like, well, wait a minute, why doesn't it have that sound? Like I heard in the video when Brandon was doing it, it just had more of a lilting sound, or you just kind of know something's missing. That would be because you're probably not doing the picking pattern. You might run into some other stumbling blocks with it too, but that's like the first thing that I would troubleshoot on any student that came back after a week of trying to get this down and just said something about it didn't sound right. It's 9 times out of 10, it's because they didn't follow the picking pattern. So I highly recommend to just try to get that straight at first. Get in the habit of doing those upstrokes on the offbeats. We'll see you next time.